In Act 1, Marilyn asks Ellen for advice about buying a house.
Ellen, I'd like your opinion.
About what?
Well, Richard and I feel that with a baby coming, we need to have our own place to live.
They talk about seeing a real estate agent, someone who sells houses, and they talk about getting a mortgage, a bank loan, to buy a house.
Maybe we should speak to a real estate agent about a house.
And a bank about a mortgage?
Does Ellen want Richard and Marilyn to buy a house? How does Ellen feel?
Ellen, I'd like your opinion.
About what?
Well, Richard and I feel that with a baby coming, we need to have our own place to live. Oh, well, what do you think about Richard and me looking for a small house or an apartment at this point in our lives?
We love having you here. And there is room, and when the baby comes, the baby can stay in your room for a while.
Richard feels we need to find a small house.
I remember when I was pregnant with Richard. Philip and I were living with Grandma and Grandpa. Philip was a young doctor, and he kept talking about having a house of our own. It's natural.
What did you do?
We looked at a lot of houses.
Did you find one?
Oh, not at first, but we couldn't afford it. Grandpa wanted to lend us the money to buy one. But Philip is too independent. He didn't want to borrow any money.
Sounds like Richard.
Well, they're all alike. Richard is a real steward. He's independent and sometimes, just stubborn.
When did you buy a house?
After Richard was born. I was teaching music, and Philip was opening his first medical office.
Where was the house?
Oh, right here in Riverdale. Of course, it was a small house, but just right for us.
It's funny. History repeats itself. Now, Richard and I are having a baby, and we probably won't be able to afford a house right away either.
Why don't you look at some houses, Marilyn?
Good idea.
Look in the real estate section of Sunday's Times. You'll learn a lot.
Maybe we should speak to a real estate agent about a house.
And a bank about a mortgage.
I'll talk to Richard about it. I think it's a good idea, Ellen. We can learn a lot by asking.
And if I can be of any help, let me know. As a matter of fact, my friend Virginia Martinelli is a real estate agent.
Good.
You won't believe this, but she sold us our first house and this one.
Well, I'll tell Richard, and we'll go to see her. Do you think the skirt length is right, Ellen? Do you think it's too long?
Oh, I think the skirt is just right. Are you planning to attach a train to it?
No, no train. Just the dress. But I am going to make a headpiece of lace.
That dress is gorgeous.
Thanks, Ellen. And thanks for the advice about the house. I'll talk to Richard about it the minute he comes home.
And remember, we love having you here. There's no need to rush. I remember when I was pregnant with Richard. Philip and I were living with Grandma and Grandpa. Philip was a young doctor, and he kept talking about having a house of our own. It's natural. I remember when Philip and I wanted a place of our own, like Marilyn and Richard want one now. All people dream of a place of their own. Some people dream of a farmhouse in the country. Other people dream about owning an apartment in the city. Philip and I had our dreams, too. Philip wanted a ranch-style house in Riverdale with a front door where his patients could enter his first medical office. Oh, I wanted to live in Riverdale, too, but I wanted a Spanish-style house, like the one I grew up in, with tiles on the roof. So we looked in the real estate section of the newspaper, we read about lots of houses for sale, and we went to see a real estate agent, as Marilyn and Richard are going to do. We looked at lots and lots of houses, but we didn't have enough money to buy any of them. Richard and Marilyn don't have much money either. Maybe they won't be able to afford a house.
It's funny. History repeats itself. Now, Richard and I are having a baby, and we probably won't be able to afford a house right away either.
We couldn't afford one right away, but we kept looking, and later, after Richard was born, we bought a house here in Riverdale. Oh, it was small, and it didn't have much land, but I loved it. Philip and I both loved it, because finally, we had a place of our own.